everybody, welcome to my 144 topics. This week I'm talking about anti-nutrients. So last week I was talking about foods for stress, so this week we're really talking about anti-nutrients and why anti-nutrients are important. So what are they first? So I could be talking about anti-foods, but I'm going to save anti-foods for another topic. Anti-foods could be things like MSG or aspartame, or it could be things like food additives or even genetically modified foods. So we will save them for some other topics. So anti-nutrients are basically the plant's way of protecting itself. So, you know, a seed grows and we have seeds. So they're found primarily in grains and legumes, in some seeds, but mostly in legumes and grains. So, you know, the beans and the lentils grow and the grains grow, and then they want to be protected. So they want to be protected because they don't want to be germinating and sprouting just willy-nilly, because they want to be waiting for the optimal time for growth when they're in a safer space and the conditions are right and the weather's right and the moisture's right. When all that stuff's sort of right, then they're in a position to actually to be able to germinate and replicate. So they have these anti-nutrients and these inhibitors there to stop that happening. The other reason they also have the inhibitors as well is because they're storing energy. So if we, you know, fruits, nuts and seeds and legumes are actually fruits. So they're actually the seed part of the plant that's actually being used for replication and for, to create and grow more food. So, you know, they have all the life force in there and the nutrients in there to be able to grow and to be able to make a new plant and to be able to quite easily grow into a big seed or whatever it is. So they have stores of phosphorus or stores of other nutrients in there to actually help them do that. So that's one reason why, again, they have the anti-nutrients. So it's always for replication. So I'm just going to talk about some of those and give some examples of those, and then at the end we'll talk about, you know, what you can do with those. So first one that comes to mind is oxalates. So oxalates is basically found in spinach, silver beet, that sort of stuff. Oxalates is oxalic acid, so it's what gives it that sort of, you can taste it more in silver beet and sorrels than what you can in spinach. And of course, once we cook it or steam it, or then we wash the oxalates out. So oxalates are actually water soluble, very easily leached out of the system. The next one I can think of is tannins. So tannins are basically what turn skin into leather. So tannins are found in quite a lot of foods, often in old material, decaying, dying, mature material as well. So tannins, we know tannins are found in coffee, mostly in teas, in black tea, less in green tea and less in white tea. So basically having a lot of tannins will actually turn your stomach from a nice skin stomach into a leather bag. So I've spoken to pathologists and people who have said they can always tell a tea drinker by the state of their digestive system. So ideally not having too much tannins in your system. You know, there's a time for tannins. We can use it. It can be used to heal gut linings and to repair, but it can also interfere with absorption. So of course, once we're turning skin into leather, you can't then pull and absorb the nutrients through those linings because it's made an impermeable layer. So, you know, too much tannins in your diet will actually look at reducing the absorption of nutrients, so reabsorption of calcium, zinc, iron, that sort of nutrients as well. So that's an issue there with tannins. So phytic acid's another one. Phytates are found in a lot of grains, a lot of legumes. So basically they again will interfere and reduce the absorption of nutrients. So it's almost like they're competing for nutrient uptake as well. So for some phytoestrogens can have beneficial abilities, though some phytoestrogens are actually used to ward off pests. So if they're going to do harm to pests, then they can be potentially doing harm for us. Salicylates have some sort of anti-nutrients. So salicylic acid in them is quite high. That can react with some people. That's the nightshade family, highest, cucumbers, tomatoes, red capsicums, strawberries, that sort of stuff as well. Then we've got things like glycoalkaloids. So glycoalkaloids, the biggest example of this is green potatoes. So once potatoes go actually green, then they are becoming quite toxic, and it's not a good idea for us to eat them. Don't eat them at all, chuck them away. We also have cyanogenic glycosides, which can be used medicinally for helping with heart conditions, but it also can be quite toxic, and it can cause a central nervous system damage, so damage to the nervous system and damage to the brain, if we're taking them inappropriately or without treating them first. So cassava is an example of that. Foxglove is another example of that. What other ones have I got? So other poisons we've got is fish poisons. So that's an anti-nutrient as well. There are certain breeds of fish that are very fatal if we were to eat it, and even through cooking it can still actually be a bit of an issue. So anti-nutrients are all around us. People who have paleo diets tend to have a minimal amount of them because they're basically, there's less grains and legumes that they're actually having. So that's more of a low anti-nutrient diet. The good news is that even though we have these anti-nutrients in our diet, then they're quite easily changed and absorbed, and the way to do that and to deactivate them is probably the best word to use. So they're quite easily deactivated by soaking. So when you soak nuts and seeds overnight, basically you can reduce lectins, I didn't mention lectins, by 38 to 50%, tannins by 13 to 25%, and protease inhibitors by 28 to 30%. Your protease inhibitors basically stop the enzymes breaking down, and they can interfere with protein digestion and interfere with absorption. So as soon as you soak them, that's it, you reduce them. They're meant to be there, and Mother Nature's made them. It's not a big drama, don't worry about them. But soaking them will actually help. Sprouting as well. So I had a raw cafe for a few years, and we would sprout the chickpeas as opposed to just having them cooked or whatever. And once you sprout them, you then increase the enzyme activity. You actually increase the nutrient levels in them. So sprouting them is always good. Sprouted hummus we used to make is just a lot more crunchier and nice when it's raw. So soaking them, sprouting them, also fermenting them. So when we do fermented foods, we actually then can look at doing that sort of stuff as well. And of course, when we sort of eat things raw, so the more, if we're eating, foods have enzyme inhibitors, we eat more enzyme-rich foods, which are basically nutrients high in enzymes, then we're going to get better levels of that. So, my advice is not be concerned about these. Part of these reasons for these recordings is to increase awareness about stuff, but be mindful that Mother Nature has her own way of being able to protect the replication of a species and to protect herself, and she does this with anti-nutrients, but they're very easily overcome. So they're easily overcome through cooking, through soaking, through sprouting, through fermenting, or doing some other process as well. So yeah. With the fermentation, I will just mention about, soy. Hence, I believe soy is not a healthy food to be eating for other reasons we're not going to discuss today. Though, fermented once you ferment it, actually, because soy does have a lot of phytates, a lot of enzyme inhibitors, a lot of anti-nutrients. But of course, once you ferment it, then it makes a different matter. So, natto, tempeh, and that sort of stuff is a healthier option, which would be okay. So my advice is just keep eating lots of healthy food and live food, and I'll be back next week with a new topic. And have a fabulous week. I'm seeing you always in happiness and in health. So take care. Bye.